This is the Atlanta Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hi everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the Atlanta Small Business Show. The coronavirus pandemic has had varying effects on leaders and businesses in Atlanta. And for one man, it propelled him into launching a home insulation franchise this February. On today's show, we're pleased to welcome Ryan McCann, who is the market leader at Koala Insulation. And we're also joined by Leslie Cuban, who is the franchise industry expert and owner of FranNet in Atlanta and a frequent guest here on the Atlanta Small Business Show. So thank you folks very much for joining us once again.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Appreciate you having me.
Sure. So
good to be back. Glad to be here.
Sure. So let's start with you, Ryan. Tell us about your business, Koala Insulation, and who are your customers, and what do you do for them?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. So really, at its core, Koala Insulation is really all about saving our customers money on their energy cost and creating a more comfortable and healthier environment, both inside and out. You know, it's really interesting. There was a study done by the North American Insulation Manufacturers Association, and it showed that roughly about 90% of existing U.S. single-family homes are under-insulated.
Wow.
And that's wasting both energy and money.
Yeah.
And a properly insulated or sealed building or home can reduce energy consumption by as much as 50%.
Oh my gosh,
so
that's incredible.
This is really a huge opportunity for us where we see both significant growth now and also in the future.
Yeah.
But really at Koala Insulation, we take an educational first approach and match that with the use of great technology to improve a traditionally opaque home improvement project.
Okay.
That really gives the homeowner the confidence in the decisions that they are making to save money on their energy cost.
Yeah.
However, the quality we provide really goes beyond the actual insulating of buildings and homes. We are also proactive when it comes to customer service, with the goal really, Jim, to deliver a painless and seamless process for our customers.
Yeah.
So most of our customers are homeowners. Mm-hmm. However, we do some B2B work as well with contractors, restoration companies, property and business owners as well. And then as far as the services that we offer many different types of insulation services, whether that's spray foam, bat or blown in cellulose or fiberglass, as well as air sealing, as well as other energy efficiency upgrades. But, you know, Jim, here's the real headline on this is insulation is one of the few things a homeowner can do to their home that they will start seeing a return on their investment immediately.
Yeah, I bet. You got to start with my home.
Be glad to do it. Absolutely.
There's no question about it. My wife and I sit on the couch and go, where is that breeze coming from? What is the deal with this? We have a lot of windows and doors and what have you, but there's just no way that we can keep the cold out. So we appreciate it now more than ever. But so let's back up a little bit and talk about your background, because I think it is interesting to note that you were not born and bred in the insulation business, right? So share with our viewers a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure, Jim. So I've spent the last 21 years working for the Coca-Cola Company, really in various sales roles, both in our food away from home, as well as our food at home channels. Mm-hmm. And I've really had the opportunity to live in several different states and travel to some really kind of unique places around the globe. But most recently, I worked with one of our top global retail customers that had operations in really over 30 countries. Mm-hmm. And like many companies in 2020, COVID really created some significant headwinds for the business. Mm-hmm. And the company recently went through a reorganization to really kind of emerge stronger after the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And as part of this reorganization, I decided to take the generous voluntary separation package mm-hmm. and really shift my focus to do something more entrepreneurial for the next kind of chapter of my career. And really small business ownership seemed like that logical next step for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so enters Leslie Cuban, right? And you looking to make a career and career change, and franchising seems to be the answer for you. So why don't you pick up there, Leslie, and tell us a little bit about how you guys got together, and then how you helped Ryan through this and navigate this new venture.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's such a good story. Ryan, I think we got linked up on LinkedIn,
Yep.
which is where this all started. And, timing is everything. And I think it was April, May, Ryan, when we first got connected and started talking. And, Coke hadn't really announced that yet, but it was coming. And I remember we talked about how getting into your own business was something that you thought that you would do eventually. But timing presented itself to where there was an opportunity to look at it a little sooner in your timeline. And it was just a matter of, does it make sense with the right opportunity? And again, timing being what it was, I first got introduced to Koala just a few months earlier, before Ryan, you and I got connected. And I attend a couple of different franchise conferences every year. And our spring conference, which was in February, March, is when I first learned about Koala, and it was a real standout to me. And in that it is a younger brand, but the founders and team behind it have been very, very successful in prior service industries and in franchising, and took several years to really build out the infrastructure, build out the brand, do a focus group around the logo and the coloring. I mean, they really put a lot of resources and time into building out the infrastructure of their franchising operation before they started selling franchise licenses. And I would love to say that all franchising companies do that.
I was just going to say, it sounds to me like they did it right.
They did it right.
Yeah.
And I would love to say that that's the norm, but it really stood out to me, the
Sure.
investment in the team and the resources. So even though it's a younger brand, it looks like a much more sophisticated brand. And gosh, they are growing gangbusters, and very soon I'm sure will be the leading brand in the home insulation space.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
it was special to me from that perspective.
That's fantastic. You're going into business with a partner, right, Ryan? And talk to us a little bit about that, because that I know a lot of people out there, they would love to have a partner that they can lean on when they're A, making a career change, and then B, opening up their own business. It's great to have that person that, well, you can share financial liabilities with as well, but just a sounding board, and somebody say, hey, are you is your head screwed on straight today? And just to have that person that you can lean on, right? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, sure. So I really decided to go into business with a partner, and really for two key reasons, Jim. I think the first was really the opportunity, and you kind of touched on this, the opportunity to kind of leverage our different strengths to really build a better team.
Yeah. And
then the second reason was really around to help mitigate some of the financial risk in starting a new business, obviously by myself. However, what I would say is, I think in any great business partnership, you really want to ensure that you and your partner share the same values.
Yeah.
I think in addition to sharing similar values, I think it's really important that you have a really candid conversation about your goals with the business, and you clearly define the roles that each partner is going to play in the business. And to me, these things are really critical to consider when you are looking at going into business, obviously with a partner.
Absolutely. No question about it. So let's pick up here and talk a little bit about how you chose your business. How'd you end up in insulation?
Yeah, so it's actually a really interesting question, right? So, choosing the right business can obviously be a daunting task, because there's a lot of different franchises out there that are available to you, right? It's not just your typical QSR, quick service restaurants, hamburgers and French fries. So having someone like Leslie Cuban to kind of help guide me through the process was really priceless.
No question.
Leslie was a great listener, coach, and actually at times a great therapist too as well. But as you can probably imagine, when I started my initial conversation with Leslie, owning obviously an insulation franchise was not at the top of my list.
Right.
However, Leslie told me really from the very beginning to trust the process, and she was absolutely 100%. Leslie was absolutely incredible to work with, as she kind of took the time to get to know me and understand my interests, my goals, and financial needs. And then really after multiple conversations, she was able to identify a couple of options that really fit my needs. And really from there, I took the time to explore those brands a little bit further.
Yeah. Well, you say it wasn't at the top of your list. Was insulation even on your list?
It wasn't even on my list,
Right.
as a matter of fact.
Right.
Yep.
That's funny when we have Leslie on with other clients, people that she's worked with. They say the same thing. They say, "Wow, we thought we were an accountant. We were going to open up an accounting business, and little did we realize that we didn't even really like accounting. we liked these other things that Leslie brought our way, and they've worked out very highly successful for them. So you're right. It's great to have somebody, a Leslie, that you can count on while you're trying to choose the right franchise that works for you and your partner or your family. It's so vitally important for entrepreneurs that are listening to me right now. Do not enter the franchise world without a Leslie by your side, because that is vital. They know the ins and outs. They've been down this road before. They know the good franchisors and the ones that don't live up to their promises. And you don't want to learn that you're the wrong franchisor when you're made the initial investment and you're all the way in. And Leslie has done an incredible job with that with her clients. That's why we have her on all the time, because she has such a great name in the industry, specifically here in Atlanta, because there's so many stories like yours for people that leave Coca-Cola or leave SunTrust, which I guess is now Truist, that leave UPS and other major companies that are headquartered here, with the same thing in mind, to say, hey, I still got a lot of runway ahead of me, and now I have a little bit of money in the bank because of my arrangement, with my former employer, and it's a great time to get into franchising if you're with the right franchise, and certainly if you're with the right advisor. And Leslie does just that. So what were the important factors that had to be in this new business for you?
Yeah, and Leslie did a great job of kind of asking some of these questions early on during the process. But what I really wanted was a brand that provided me with unlimited growth potential. And really, I wanted to have the ability to leverage my sales experience. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to work with customers, outside of a traditional kind of brick and mortar location.
Right.
And the other thing that I would say, Jim, that was really important was also I wanted the opportunity to be able to coach and develop a team too as well. And that was important to me as well.
Yeah, that's true. And you think about the business that you're ready to launch here, and how popular right now home improvement is. This is probably going to be one of those industries that has actually done pretty well through COVID, with everybody having to stay home and saying, all right, let's take our money that we were going to spend on a vacation or a new car or whatever and put it back into our home, because that happens to be our safe haven, right? I mean, home improvement is way up. Furniture sales are way up. And so everyone is now taking a closer look at their own situation to say, how do we make where we stay and where we live a lot better, a lot safer, and a lot more efficient? To your point, not only is it saving you energy, but it's saving you a whole lot of money, right?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with the Home Depot stock, and
yeah.
To your point, Jim, I think we've seen, instead of people going on those vacations and spending money, their discretionary income, they're at home more now. So they're really paying attention to, is that heater or is your air conditioner, is it running constantly, right? Or is there significant temperature changes from room to room, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So I think that's been the biggest things coming out of COVID, is just people spending more money, obviously, on their homes.
Sure. Leslie, let me have you jump back in here. When Ryan comes to you and says, hey, I'm looking for, a franchise to get into and open up a business and what have you, were you thinking in the back of your mind, insulation? Little is Ryan going to know, but I'm about to present him with an insulation opportunity. How do you cross that? I mean, do you present him a number of different options? And because it sounds like it was just, like he said, it wasn't even on his list.
It's a process for me too,
yeah.
Because you have to, in order to know the right what, you have to have a list of criteria to go from.
Sure.
So the journey really starts with kind of a blank canvas, and someone in my role knows the right questions to ask, mm-hmm. and you have to build this evaluation matrix of the right criteria. Ryan, when we got started, you may not have known that you didn't want a brick and mortar location. We were pretty open, but just by virtue of getting a list started, looking at some options, and then realizing, I do want something that has a smaller staff, and
sure.
I want a lot of growth potential. So we need to look at a younger brand that will give that kind of runway to really grow a larger business. So it takes some refinement over time of coming up with a criteria list, looking at some options, and further learning from that and refining the list. So when we've got a good process for that, it usually doesn't take more than a couple rounds of looking at some different opportunities to really land on the right opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
But people need to be willing to be open-minded and open to the fact that the option they're probably going to get most excited about was not something they were thinking about before engaging in this process. And if they were looking at lists of business ideas, it's probably not one that they would have landed on their own.
Isn't that interesting? And for people that watch the show, they'll know that I'm very pro franchise. I mean, if you're going to open up a business, explore and first see if there is a franchise opportunity out there in this same field that you can get into because of the support, because of the knowledge of that industry, the marketing, the brand awareness, all that goes along with that. I've always said that to anybody that's reached out to me and say, Jim, you've opened up a lot of businesses. I have, and I highly recommend, especially for those that are watching right now, look first and foremost for a franchise in that business. You will be doing yourself a world of good. And I think the franchise programs out there just save that franchisee, or I should say that entrepreneur, from so much heartache and so much trial and error and so much money lost to say, man, I wish we had known that about this industry or about that field or about marketing or what have you, because so many of my friends have gone down that road of saying, well, I think I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to go up against those franchises. And you know what? It didn't work out so well. I've even had friends of mine that have jumped into something on their own to go up against the franchises, spend a couple of $100,000, and then go buy the franchise that they were going up against. So it's I can't say enough about it. It's a great program out there. What can you share with our viewers, Ryan, some of the lessons learned through going through this process?
Yeah, and I think, Jim, you and Leslie kind of touched on a couple of those, but really two things kind of resonated to me when I was going through this process. I think the first thing is, and we've all heard this before, it's the metaphorical phrase of don't judge a book by its cover, right? So
right.
You really need to take the time to understand the brand. And I think you'll be surprised at what you actually find out. And I think that was true for my case as well.
Sure.
The second thing that I would say is really trust the process. Leslie has a proven process, and more importantly, it works. So just trust the process, and I think you'll end up being in a really good place.
Yeah, for sure. What other advice would you have for people that are thinking at a little bit later in life? Obviously, you're not in your 20s or 30s. I hope I didn't offend you with that. But for guys like us that are thinking about now jumping into business and opening up a franchise a little bit later in life, what advice would you have for those that might be on the cusp of that?
Yeah, sure, Jim. So I've been very fortunate to work with some very successful business owners over my career. And I'd pass along probably the same advice that a customer gave to me years ago. And that advice was invest in yourself and take more risk.
Yeah.
And this advice really resonated with me as I was kind of thinking about making a career change. And just to follow up on, a comment that you made earlier, at Koala Insulation, we say you are in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Yeah, it's a good way
and
to put it.
And you really get to leverage their experience and knowledge of the franchisor to really kind of help you avoid those costly mistakes that you might make along the way.
Yeah, no question about it. And Leslie, I'll give you the last word here. For people that are thinking about jumping in, what's been your experience? Because right now is people are probably watching us going, wait a minute, this guy's opening up a franchise right now with COVID out there and a national or a worldwide pandemic. Is now a good time to even think about this?
It depends on, I guess, what side of the fence you're on with that.
Sure.
But, I think people look at it one of a couple ways. Some people are scared to make decisions of any kind. Others, I think you just have to decide if you believe in the economy, if we believe in our ability to recover from the pandemic and plan for the future and plan for opportunity that comes forth from that. I think there's some real pluses to people exploring starting a business right now. Real estate costs are more favorable than they were last year. There's a larger pool of labor available looking for work to hire from. Yep. Interest rates are very attractive right now. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to explore this. And for those who are kind of on the fence of, should I look at this or not? My suggestion is take a look. What if it's out there and you don't look?
That's right.
So you may begin to explore and decide this isn't for you or the timing's not right. but what if you find something that could really work and you didn't take a look? So I think there's a lot of great industries that are having their best year ever. I mean, I think we see the headlines of the doom and gloom, and I don't mean to minimize that. I mean, there are definitely
for sure, it's a real situation, but you're right. There are some bright spots out there for sure.
Yep. And so I would also advise anyone thinking about this to involve your significant other or your spouse. You know, early on, a spouse may not be involved in the business, but he or she has a vote and a voice.
That's right.
In all of this. So I would include your partner and decision maker right away at the onset of the conversations around this.
I completely second that, because that's not a mistake or an area that you want to overlook to go, oh, don't worry about it, she'll come along. No, not necessarily. So you need everybody's buy-in in the family and the people that are close to you, and that is very important. And we might add too that there's a plethora of money on the sidelines. A lot of people think right now that, oh, the SBA is not loaning any money or the banks aren't loaning any money. That couldn't be further from the truth. I've spoken recently on the show to bank executives with big well-known banks in the area, as well as executives from the SBA, and they said, no, we are lending. Don't think that COVID has put a stop to that. We are in fact lending. There's a tremendous amount of money on the sidelines. There's a lot of private money on the sidelines for business opportunities. So the environment couldn't be better. All of the analysts that I speak to here on the show feel as though 2021 will be an incredible year. So you couldn't have picked a better time, Ryan, than to open up your own business. It sounds to me like you actually went from one company or one industry that was really hurt in a negative way, or hurt in a big way, I should say, from COVID, jumping into an industry that's actually going to do very well during COVID. So kudos to you for that choice. Timing is everything in life, right? But so I want to thank both of you very much. Ryan McCann, market leader at Koala Insulation, a company you will be hearing a lot about. For those of you that want to get in touch with Ryan to talk to you about your insulation, we'll put all the information here on the screen for you to do that. Now would be a great time to do it since we're going into the winter months. In fact, I'm going to make the first call. But Leslie Cuban, franchise industry expert and owner of FranNet here in Atlanta, for those of you that want to make the plunge or at least talk about it, Leslie is definitely the person you want to get in touch with, and it costs you $0 to do that. Just give her a call and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Let me bounce this off you and see what she says. So, folks, thank you so much for joining me here on the Atlanta Small Business Show. I know our viewers are going to get a lot out of your visit today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great to see you guys.
Thanks for watching Atlanta Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick. This has been a JBF Business Media production.